Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I'm Birdsview Politics, and in this video we're going to be covering the last 2 months of the war in Ukraine, what the significance of those events were, and what we can expect in the coming weeks as we look towards the Ukrainian spring offensive. Now, in the last 2 months, we've seen quite a bit of attacks on both sides. We saw the Russians holding on to this last town in Kharkiv Oblast over here, and that town right there is going to be crucial if Ukraine ever wants to reclaim all of Kharkiv Oblast, something that they, of course, want to do. This town is Tavyozanka. It's right across the river, and Ukraine's been kind of moving around it for months, but they've never actually gotten close enough to taking it. Now, we've also seen some movement to the south. We've seen in this whole area of the front right here, this is where a lot of the fighting has been previously, and it's where a lot of the fighting continues to be. There's a lot of major cities here: Severodonetsk, there's Lysychansk here, there's Kreminna. These are all the Russian occupied cities now. Meanwhile, we have cities to the west of that on the Ukrainian side that are a little bit larger, like Sloviansk or Kramatorsk, and also some smaller ones closer to the front lines, like Siversk. And these towns are going to be what they ultimately need to take if they want to win. If Russia wants to win this war, and especially in Donetsk at least, then they need to take those towns. Meanwhile, towards the south, we've got a bunch of other cities, most notably Bakhmut. Bakhmut is a really crucial city. It basically anchors this whole section of the front line. It's where the front line turns, and when the front line turns, that's probably where it's most important. Russia had originally attempted to encircle Bakhmut, but this ultimately failed with Ukrainian counteroffensives, and they now have seemingly given up on taking the city itself. Although Ukraine says that Russia continues to try and is instead failing, while Russia says that they are simply waiting for any Ukrainian counteroffensive. I think it says a lot about the whole Russian position in this area of Ukraine that Russia has essentially given up trying to take a major city there that they had been making good progress in for months. There is a Wagner group leader who even put out a video criticizing the chief of the army for Russia, and this is hugely significant, of course, but not much has come of it recently. Now, if we go further to the southwest, we're going to see Horlivka and Donetsk and the little smaller cities on the outskirts. And these are once again going to be hugely crucial for the Ukrainians to take. It's going to be right here. These are the Russian and Ukrainian cities that are going to be taken by either side probably in the coming weeks. This is where a lot of the fighting has been. Even in 2014, this was the main area of fighting. It's got Donetsk, which is the largest city in the region, and it also has on the other side a lot of smaller Ukrainian cities that are connected to this key railway on the road to Dnipro. Now, there's also some other attacks being made by both sides in the Zaporizhia region, which is where I expect the main thrust of this new spring offensive to happen. Now, down here, there is a major river here that the Ukrainians successfully crossed earlier, and they also have been making some key advances in areas such as Marinka or Vuhledar, which I've said for roughly a few months now would mean that they were preparing this offensive, and they've been preparing it for a while. And I think it's about to be launched, and it's because not only did Ukraine just cross a river down here, but they also seemingly have stalled the Russians at Bakhmut. And this is exactly what happened last time when the Ukrainians were making some small gains in the area around Kherson. That's when they struck so forcefully in the Kharkiv region. And I expect the same thing this time. Ukraine has stalled the Russians in Bakhmut. This time, they're now even slowly starting to counterattack in the areas around it. And now would be a pretty good time for Ukraine to launch a major offensive of their own in a different region. And this region of southern Ukraine seems most suited to it. Not only is it an area with two major cities, Melitopol and Berdyansk, as well as Mariupol, but it would also cut the Russian front in two. It would cut Russian-occupied Kherson, seen down here, off from Russian-occupied Donetsk, seen over here. Now, that would be hugely important. If Ukraine was able to do that, they could essentially flank the Russians going into Kherson maybe at a later date, and they would also be able to bombard the Russian fleet in the Sea of Azov, which has continued to hamper Ukrainian efforts to do things like ship grain out of the country from Odessa, which is the main port over here. Additionally, if Ukraine was able to make a successful offensive down here, they could even try and roll up the whole front line to the Russian border in this region. And that would, of course, be a huge victory for Ukraine. So, thank you for watching, and don't forget to tune in next week for another video. I'll see you then. Thank you. Have a great day, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.